afternoon, everyone. On the behalf of Action Cancer Hospital and Delhi Gynecology Forum Southwest and AOGD Oncology Subcommittee, I, Dr. Swati Virmani, would like to bid a very warm welcome to all the delegates for Gynae Onco Update 2 on a very important topic, management of abnormal cervical screening, a common clinical dilemma. As we all know, cervical cancer is a major public health problem, being second most common cancer in India. And India has the highest number of new cases and deaths every year due to cervix cancer in the world. The reason being lack of effective screening program and access to suitable, well-timed treatment. The cervical cancer is curable if detected early and treated properly because of its long precancerous stage. In India, we do not have any screening guidelines, hence we are doing opportunistic screening according to our resources. The purpose of this meeting is to understand the guidelines and recommendations of screening of cervical cancer and manage accordingly to prevent the cervical cancer. To update, we have been granted one ICOG credit hour. Now, without a further ado, let me welcome and introduce our chairpersons. Dr. Anita Rajoria, she is Senior Consultant and HOD, Department of Obs and Gynae at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Hospital, Government of NCT of Delhi. Ma'am is Founder, Vice President, Delhi Gynae Forum Southwest, Chairperson, Adolescent Health Committee, and she has been member of various committees, won the prestigious APJ Abdul Kalam Appreciation Award. She has various scientific papers in national and international journals. Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Leena N. Sridhar. She is Senior Consultant Obs and Gynae at Manipal Hospital, Dwarka, New Delhi, and Head of Department Academics and Research of Hospital. She is also a member of Ethics Committee of Manipal Hospitals. She received various awards including Superheroes in White Coat Award, Women's Achievers Award, and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam's Appreciation Award. Our very own Dr. Ruby Sehra, she is HOD Sri Balaji Action Hospital, Director Progeny IVF ICSI Center, laparoscopic surgeon and infertility specialist with special interest in gynae oncology. Dr. Sunita Malik, she is Professor, Consultant and Unit Head, Obs and Gynae at Vardhaman Medical College and Safdarjung Hospital, Delhi. She is Chairperson of AOGD Gynae Oncology, Vice President of Association of Obs and Gynae of Delhi, AOGD. Ma'am has various publications in national and international journal with special interest in gynae oncology, high-risk pregnancy, and critical care. Now, I would like to invite everyone present here for lamp lighting ceremony.
Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityurma amritam gamaya. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityurma amritam gamaya. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityurma amritam gamaya. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityurma amritam gamaya.
Now I would request Dr. Anita to start the session and invite the first speaker. Over to you, Anita ma'am.
Okay. Welcome everybody. Thank you Action Cancer Hospital for arranging this excellent webinar on cervical cancer screening. And thanks for making DGF Southwest and AOGD Oncology Committee a part of this important webinar. We know how important it is to screen for cancer cervix, which is a major cause of mortality in women in India. Recently, we have had revised guidelines which have been just introduced in July, and these were decided in it was decided in 2020 about 90-70-90 policy by WHO. So to achieve these targets by 2030, WHO has recently launched the latest guidelines, which were just shared few days back with all of us. It has guidelines both for HIV patients who need special screening and other general women population. So we are eager to listen to these guidelines, what Dr. Renuka Gupta is going to share with us. She is MBBS, MS, FMAS. She's a consultant gynae oncologist at Action Cancer Hospital, New Delhi. She has been specially trained in gynae onco from Tata Memorial Hospital, Mumbai, and Kidwai Memorial Institute of Oncology. She is executive member of our DGF Southwest, and she has got more than 15 years of work experience in gynae and gynae oncology. She has got special interest in lab, radical cancer surgeries, and colposcopy. She has various publications to her credit, especially in reference to gynae malignancies. So we are ready to listen to you, dear Dr. Renuka. Looking forward for a brilliant disposition by you. So over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for nice introduction, and thank you also, chairperson, for accepting our invitation in a short time. So, as we all know, as ma'am said, we have a major issues. Gynae cervical cancer is a major health problem in our India. It is the second most common malignancy in India after the breast cancer. Basically, in India, the incidence and mortality is quite high among all countries in the world. So this is just because we have a lack of infrastructure, lack of screening guidelines, acceptance and performance. We have a lack of infrastructure, and we have a lack of gynecologists also, lack of pathologists also, and cost is very important for us for the HPV testing and colposcopy. So because of lack of these screening programs, we have a higher burden of cervical cancer in India. So the purpose to choose this topic today, because according to the Ministry of Family and Health, Family Welfare, in 2016, they give us an guidelines for opportunistic screening. Because we are a gynecologist, patient came to us and we are screening patient according when they came to us. So there is a very routine issues that how to deal the patients when PAPS is abnormal. If PAPS is normal, we don't have any issues. We usually follow the patients, but we usually don't follow according to the guidelines. If any abnormality is there, we don't know how to counsel the patient, either patient to the colposcopy or refer the patient. So there are certain guidelines which are made. Uh, in absence of our Indian guidelines before 2018, we usually follow the international guidelines. And international guidelines, ASCCP guidelines are mainly which is followed. These are formulated in 2001 and then updated are coming in 2006 and 2012. In 2015, they incorporate HPV screening also into the guidelines. And now in 2019, they have given the risk-based management, because they know that they have screened properly their women in previous years, and they are usually having a proper vaccination program there. But these guidelines in Indian scenario is cannot be worked properly, because we don't have any screening proper guidelines, because patient came to us, usually this was in a first visit, they're not going proper screening before that. So we cannot follow the ASCCP guidelines. So we have our Indian experts set and made a FOXY GCPR guidelines. These are basically good clinical practice recommendations which are suitable for India and Indian women, because of these are according to the resource available in India. The WHO also given their guidelines in 2014, and they have a revised guideline in July 2021. This is recently launched, and their basic target is doing a HPV screening is a prime motive for the primary screening, and patient who is HPV positive, they tries that patient, send the patient to, for either to see and treat. They screen the patient and treatment at the same time, or can be patient triaged either with a cytology, colposcopy, or with a via, and then treat the patient according to the finding. But with the Indian scenario, FOXY GCPR guidelines we are usually following, and discussing these FOXY GCPR guide recommendations today to understand the findings, that what the timings we have to screen the patient, what are the tests we should use, and what are the what we have to do when any abnormality in the screening is there. So we have a three types of tests if you're doing a screening modality. First is HPV testing. It is having a higher sensitivity and negative predictive, positive predictive value. So basically, if we know that if HPV is negative, then patient don't have we are having a higher assurance that patient don't have any abnormality right now and should not be there over CIN 2 or 3 plus in next 5 to 7 years. So its sensitivity is quite high. So every guidelines recommend HPV testing as a primary screening tool right now. So HPV screening is accordingly. And cytology, specificity of cytology is quite high, that is around 90%, but its sensitivity is low. So if any abnormality in the screening is there, we have to do some other tests to treat the patient. We cannot directly treat the patient only according to the cytology report. We have to do either colposcopy, or we have to follow the patient with the HPV testing, and have to manage follow the guidelines. In a co-testing, this is a combination of both tests, HPV, which is a high sensitive test, and cytology, which is specific test. So these tests is usually good in our scenario, but usually when randomized trial are followed, it was seen that co-testing doesn't give any benefit over the HPV testing alone. But in Indian scenario, we usually follow right now these guidelines only. VIA basically is a visual inspection after application of acetic acid. This test having a poor specificity, even low sensitivity, and high false positivity, but because it is very good in low resource areas, because it doesn't need any expert to see, because healthcare worker can learn this to do VIA, and if patient is VIA positive, they can treat at their area, or they can refer for the patient to us. So WHO gives an algorithm to how to choose your screening modality. It is resource based, not that every patient need to do this. It is depend how resources, what are the resources it's available at your place. If you don't have cytology, if you don't have HPV testing, but you can apply acetic acid, it is easily available. So do VIA, and if VIA is positive, if you can do ablative management, you can do ablative management at that time, or you can refer the patient to do the further management in higher center. Otherwise, if you have a you don't have pathologist, you can do a HPV testing, because it's only a lab based test. There is no need of any expert in doing HPV test. So HPV testing can be used in a lower resource area also, but it's only the problem is its cost effectiveness. So, and if you have a cytology, you can do with the cytology only, but the screening timing is reduced to 3 years with cytology. If you have a board test, it's better to go with the board test, and any abnormality, if you found, you can refer the patient or do the colposcopy biopsy, whatever available at your resources. So these are the recommendations for the good and limited resource setting areas. So if we have any abnormal test, we have to triage tools also, and we can manage the patient according to their finding and guidelines. So they also offer a single visit approach. This approach is usually for the patients who are less compliant, and we know that they'll lost to follow up if we'll refer them to some place. So these are the guidelines for in which there are guidelines that we screen the patient, we treat the patient in the same sitting without waiting for the histopathological verification. We can take the biopsy at that time, but don't wait for the biopsy report before starting the treatment. So these are two types of single visit approach: see and treat. If you screen the patient, you see the patient under the colposcopy. If you have a colposcopy clinic, you do the colposcopy of patient if they have a high grade cytology or abnormal HPV or abnormal Wire test at that time, and you see the lesion with the help of colposcopy. If any abnormal finding is there and patient categorized into the ablative treatment method, so you can do ablative procedure or you can do excisional procedure if patient is not fit under the ablative management category. So second point is screen and treat. In low resource areas where you don't have a colposcopy to do, you can see the patient, screen the patient with HPV testing, or you can do VIA at the same time, and after abnormal VIA you can treat the patient at same setting, either with the ablative procedure usually. So these are the basically criteria. These are same. These usually have a less chances of doing. Their chances of over treatment is there, but when we are using colposcopy and cytology, the lesion over treatment is usually less rather than doing a screen and treat. So, what are the recommendations for screening? Screening modality, I already explained that HPV testing, cytology or VIA, three screening modalities are available, and we have to use according to our resources, what resources are available at our place. So, the target age is usually 25 to 65 years of age. This target is set after some randomized trials. In India, the incidence of cancer is very less before the age of 25. It's only 0.06% chances of cervical malignancies in less than 25 years of age. So guidelines, a recommendation says that we should start screening after the age of 25. And if in low resource settings, because we are doing the screening with VIA, it's better to start screening after age of 30 years. Uh, primary screening, if you are starting with the HPV test, it says that a patient with less than 30 years of age, usually HPV positive. So, co-testing should be started after the age of 30 years. And when we are doing a screening with VIA, VIA should be effective till the age of 50 years, because after the menopause, your transformation zone recedes inside, and VIA is not an effective method for doing a screening. So VIA can be done easily up to the 50 years of age. So what are the frequency? Frequency means that how often we have to do this screening test if everything is normal. So if we are doing only cytology test, we have to repeat the cytology every 3 years. But if you are doing co-testing, we can do, or HPV primary HPV, we can increase the interval up to 5 years. Because of randomized trial shows that the cumulative incidence risk of CIN3 plus is with the primary HPV testing, it is only 3.34%, while it is with cytology, it is 0.78%. And when we compare both tests, up to the 2.5 years, 5 years, usually the risk is same. The incidence of decreasing the cervical cancer is same up to 2.5 years, but after that, incidence is less with when we are doing screening primary HPV based test. So primary HPV based test can be increased the interval up to 5 years. And with the VIA, because this is in low resource areas, so they usually do it every 5 yearly, or otherwise patient can at least 3 times in lifetime VIA screening should be done. So what is age to stop? It was seen that there is no advantage of doing screening up to the age of 90 years. So it should be, it can be stopped up to the age 65. If we see that patient is on regular screening and their last 15 years, she have a negative screening. Patient who don't have undergone screening and came to us at the later stage. If it is she came at the later stage after 65 or at the 65, if at present screening is negative, patient can exit the screening. There is no need to follow the screening protocol uh, later on. If we follow the patient after the treatment, we have to do HPV based screening usually. But if you don't have HPV based screening, you can do the cytology also, but it should be done at the 1 year interval. If you have a treating abnormal report which reports CIN2 plus, because it's a high grade cytology, the chances of recurrence are always there. So it is recommended by the FOXI that we have to screen the patient up to 20 years. Now in a ASCCP, they recommend that patient should be followed at least 25 years post treatment of CIN2 plus, or patient can be screened lifelong till patient's health allow her to screen routinely. If we see the hysterectomized patient, if patient came to us hysterectomy done for the benign purpose and we are assured that cervix is not there, so the patient can exit the screening. If indication not known, it's up to you. If you see vault is healthy, there is no need of screening. Otherwise, you can screen the patient uh, according to you. So, if patient having the CIN report in hysterectomy, you should repeat her HPV based screening at 6 months and 18 months. If both negative, patient can exit screening. In immunocompromised patient, you should start screening within a year of initiation of sexual activity, irrespective of her age. And screening is preferred if it is done by HPV testing every 2 to 3 yearly. But with the cytology or via, if your resources are not there, if whatever is resource available, you can use in that resources. So when we'll talk about the HPV as a primary screening, because it's in a high sensitivity and negative predictive value, it allows a safe prolonged period. But because of its low specificity, patient have to be triaged because otherwise patient have a higher referral to colposcopy and unnecessary colposcopy was done. So in a high risk type 16-18 positive cases, the risk of CIN2 plus is more, that is 21.1% rather than the other strains. So when we screen a patient with the HPV test and HPV test is negative, this patient can be screened in every 5 yearly accordingly routine screening. But if patient report is HPV positive, there is no need to refer directly for the colposcopy or directly do the colposcopy. It can be over treatment. So you can triage the patient accordingly. You can do either the genotyping or cytology or via. If patient is via positive or her cytology is more than ASCS or her genotyping 16-18 is positive, refer the patient for the colposcopy or do colposcopy if it's available to you. Or but if patients have a negative via negative cytology and HPV is positive but other than 16-18, you can follow the patient after 1 year with repeat co-testing. If repeat co-testing is normal, then patient can be underwent routine screening program. If anything is positive, we have to manage accordingly. Colposcopy and biopsy should be done according to the results. When we are doing screening with co-testing, it's quite effective when we are doing co-testing. It's a four plans can be there. Either patient is HPV positive and cytology positive. If both HPV positive, cytology positive, there is no need of discussion. Patient should be referred for the colposcopy biopsy, or you can do colposcopy. And if both tests are negative, routine screening at 5 years interval. But if your HPV is negative but cytology is positive, because cytology is positive, low grade cytology can be reversed with the time. So in low grade cytology, you can repeat co-testing after 1 year. But if you have a high grade cytology with HPV negative, refer the patient to the colposcopy because the specificity of this test, sensitivity of this test is less. If patient is HPV positive but cytology negative, again you have to genotyping, positive genotyping 16-18, refer the patient to the colposcopy. Otherwise, you can screen the patient after 1 year with co-testing and follow the results accordingly. If two negative co-testing are there, then patient can refer for the routine screening guidelines. When we do the cytology as a primary screening, the sensitivity of a single PAP detection of CIN23 is 51 to 53%, while specificity is very high. So, but cytology is a best tool to triage the HPV positive patient to reduce the unnecessary colposcopy. So these are the Bethesda terminologies. You all will, I think, aware of this. So I am not going to detail of this screen. There are the different terminologies are there in Bethesda. So these are usually we seen in Pap smear reporting of by the pathologist. So I'm going to use these terms in next all slides. So these are some risk progression given according to the cytological abnormalities. So these are the risks. You can go through it with the ASCCP formats. So I'm not going to in detail of this, but uh, if on the basis of this risk progression protocols, we have to refer the patient either for the colposcopy if progression chances are more than 5%. If risk of progression is 2 to 5% for the CIN2 plus, repeat testing in 6 to 12 months. If risk is only 0.1 to 2%, patient can be retested after 3 years. And if risk of progression is less than 0.1%, patient can undergo routine screening at 5-year interval. So what's the management of ascus? It's a very commonly 2.8% of cytology shows ascus in our cytology. And if we'll do the HPV testing, usually 23 to 70% of patients are HPV positive. But only on the basis of ascus, usually we should not refer the patient for the colposcopy, but it all depends on your sources and compliance of the patient. If patient is non-compliant, you can do the colposcopy and or via, and you can do the see and treat treatment so that patient is not lost to follow. Otherwise, it's cost effective if you are doing HPV test with the same sample of LBC that is known as reflex HPV testing. It's most cost effective. So when HPV test is positive, then this positive patient, irrespective of their genotype, you should send for the colposcopy. So ascus HPV positive patient should be done colposcopy plus minus biopsy if any abnormality is there in colposcopy. If patient is ascus patient is negative for HPV, patient can undergo routine screening in 5-year interval. Or if you don't have a facility of HPV, you can go for the cytology after 1 year. If any abnormality in cytology, either the ascus or high-grade cytology, you should refer the patient to the colposcopy. Otherwise, negative cytology, you can repeat the cytology after 3 years because screening interval for the cytology is 3 years. If there is low-grade intraepithelial lesion in a woman more than 30 years, usually it was shown that these are 0.9% cases of cytology shows the LSIL, and more than 80% are positive for a HPV test. There are recommendations that HPV test is usually not necessary for LSIL patients because these most of the patients are HPV positive, and regression rates of LSIL is quite high rather than the progression. So it's better to go for the colposcopy directly. So your patient should undergo colposcopy, and according to the colposcopy and biopsy finding, we can manage the patient. But if you have a HPV test in your hand and HPV is positive, then refer the patient to colposcopy. If patient is HPV negative, and you can have an option, it can be acceptable. You can do co-testing at 1 year, and if any abnormality after the 1 year, you can do the colposcopy at that time. In young patient with ascus or LSIL, if patient is not compliant, then you can do the colposcopy or a via at the same time, or see a treat policy can be applied if only the patient is non-compliant and high-grade lesion is suspected in colposcopy. Otherwise, because young patients have a usually 70% of cases of LSIL or ascus revert back to normal within 2 years. So repeat cytology annually for 2 years is recommended. If cytology is negative, then patient can be followed with the help of cytology every 3-yearly interval. But if you have a repeat cytology, again ASCUS or LSIL, it's better to go for the colposcopy, and any abnormal finding we have to follow accordingly. Otherwise, if there is cytology, sorry, if cytology is normal, you can repeat cytology at 1 year. So 2 negative reports, patient can get back to normal routine screening protocols. If there is high-grade abnormality in patient who is more than 30 years of age group, irrespective of HPV status, if you don't have HPV test, there is no need to do HPV trials of high-grade cytology abnormality. But if you, whatever HPV status is there, it's positive or negative, there is no need to do according to the HPV trials. You have to do colposcopy and cervical biopsy along with endocervical curettage of these patients, except for the pregnancies. For these patients, high-grade cytology needs colposcopy, and in colposcopy, you have to see your colposcopy is adequate and satisfactory. When the transformation zone must be seen in your colposcopy. If transformation zone is properly seen, your colposcopy shows a less than CIN1 lesion, then you can observe the patient after 1 year with co-testing, or you can ablate the patient at that time in a see and treat policy and follow the patient with co-testing at 1 year after the treatment. But if you see the high-grade pathology is showing a CIN2 or 3, you should prefer to do LEAP. But it all depends on your resources. If patient meets the criteria of ablative treatment, that is your lesion should be entirely visible to the limited cervix. Your lesion should be located to the ectocervix only and not extension into endocervix or vagina. And there is no suspicion of invasive cancer. Then in only these points, you can also do the ablative procedure. But if your colposcopy is inadequate or your transformation zone is completely seen, you should go for the diagnostic excisional procedure, either by the with the help of LEAP or cold ligation, whatever suits to you. If you have a high-grade cytology in patient who was young and desires their pregnancy, it was seen that colposcopy biopsy is must. You have to do colposcopy, and in according to the biopsy finding, you have to see if patient having no lesion less than CIN2 or 3, you can follow the patient with the help of cytology and colposcopy at 6-month interval for up to 2 years. If after 1 year you again have a high-grade cytology and colposcopy finding, then repeat biopsies, and persistent high-grade cytology for 2 years needs excisional procedure. Or if you have a excisional on your colposcopy or first visit you have a 2 or 3 lesion, CIN2 or 3 lesion, it's better to go for the excisional procedure or ablative procedure as per your lesion. If there is no abnormality in your routine follow-up, then you can follow the patient even after. So what will be the management if there is abnormal glandular cell in cytology? Abnormal glandular cells are subcategorized into the various forms: endocervical cells, endometrial cells, not otherwise specified. Agas term is obsolete now. So another term is AGS, which favors neoplasia or favors adenocarcinoma in situ or adenocarcinoma. So what will be the management if we have atypical endometrial cells? If we have atypical endometrial cells, their chances of endometrial cancers are 12%. Chances of ovarian cancers are 1.4%. So we have to evaluate everything. So any atypical glandular cells, it shows atypical endometrial cells. So first we have to evaluate our endometrium. So endometrial curettage along with endocervical curettage should be done. If any endometrial pathology is there, you have to manage according to the endometrial pathology. But if you have there is no endometrial pathology is there, then go for the colposcopy and biopsy. And if colposcopy and biopsy, patient can return to the age-specific routine screening. If you have a atypical glandular cells not otherwise specified or endocervical cells, usually these lesions are having a glandular cells, abnormal glandular cells, but squamous abnormalities are chances of squamous abnormalities are higher than the glandular abnormalities. So colposcopy, biopsy, along with endocervical sampling and endometrial sampling should be done in patient more than 35 years or patient who having a risk of endometrial cancer like obese patient, PCOD patient or patient on hormonal supplements. So in these patients, if colposcopy shows CIN2 plus lesion or AIS or invasive cancer, we have to follow accordingly. But if there is no lesion is identified, you can follow the patient with a co-testing or cytology at 1 and 2 years. If both tests are negative, we can send the patient for the routine screening. Any test positive anytime needs colposcopy and biopsy, and we have to follow the recommendations. If AGC favors the neoplasia or adenocarcinoma in situ, in these patients, colposcopy, ECC, and endometrial sampling should be done, and we have to manage either the endometrial pathology or the endocervical pathology accordingly. If endometrial pathology is there, we have to do hysterectomy. If endocervical pathology is there, it's better to go for the diagnostic excisional procedure first, and according to the margin status, we have to recommend for the hysterectomy or the radical surgery according to our histopathology report. But if both endometrial and endocervical samplings are negative, you should evaluate for the ovarian or tubal pathology. So it's better to go for a good ultrasound scan to rule out any ovarian or fallopian tube malignancies or abnormalities. If no pathology is detected, it's better to go for the conization and follow the recommendations for the after the histopathology reports. If your smear is unsatisfactory, then you can try the patient. Either you can call the patient for the repeat testing after 2 to 4 months, or if you have a HPV report with you and HPV is positive, it's better to go for the colposcopy. If your VIA is positive, then patient should be referred to the colposcopy. If VIA negative, your repeat cytology is negative, and your HPV is negative, there is repeat cytology after 2 to 4 months, and patient can be screened according to the routine screening. For any positive finding, we have to follow the recommendations according to the finding. If we are using VIA for the screening, usually VIA should be done every 5 yearly. If VIA is negative, then patient can be routine with the 5-year program for this as a screening protocol. If VIA is positive, if you have available colposcopy, you can do colposcopy and biopsy and treat according if the finding is CIN1, 2 or invasive cancer, and refer the patient or rescreen the patient. If you have an abnormality seen and you have an ablative procedure or a excisional procedure to be done, patient is not compliant, so you can do screen and treat approach at the same time in single visit approach. So in a screening of HIV patient should start screening at the first year of diagnosis irrespective of age, first year of diagnosis and starting of sexual activity irrespective of our age. Usually ART services should be integrated with the cervical screening program, and usually recommended to screen every 3 yearly up to the age of 65 years. In limited resource setting, every 3 yearly VIA should be done up to 50 years of age. In a pregnant patient, if you should do PS examination. If your PS is normal, you can defer the screening till postpartum. If your screening show speculum examination show any abnormality, it's better to follow the screening protocol. Now, what to do when we have done colposcopy, we have taken the biopsy, or we have done VIA and taken the biopsy and do it. So what should do if histology shows CIN1? So depending on the cytology, if we have a high grade cytology or low grade cytology, we can treat the patient because CIN1 having a higher regression rate rather than the progression rate. So in 2 years, usually CIN1 can get back to normal. So because of its higher regression rate. So if her previous report shows HPV positive, Eschers LSIL or only VIA positive, we can screen the patient. We can do the co-testing at 1 year and 2 year interval. If both tests are negative, patient can go back to the normal routine screening. But her histology is high grade, but her biopsy is CIN1. So there is a discrepancy between the cytology and her histology. So we can do diagnostic excisional procedure also with ECC to take the decision, or we can follow up the patient with the co-testing at 6 month interval for 2 years. If any abnormality is there, we have to again do the colposcopy and biopsy and manage according to our finding. But if negative reports are there to for 2 years, we can follow the patient in routine screening. If a patient is a young and desires pregnancy, so we can again check our report. And if high grade lesion is there, definitely you have to screen. You can follow the patient at 6 month interval with the help of cytology as well as colposcopy. If any finding suggestive of invasive cancer, we have to manage the patient. If there is no signs of invasive disease, we can repeat co-testing and along with colposcopy at 1 year and follow according to the findings of our colposcopy and cytology. If there is low grade cytologies only, we can routine screening up to 2 years. Every reports are normal, patient can be follow as a 5 year interval routine screening. If there is a high grade histology, that's CIN2 or 3, so confusion is usually between the CIN2 and CIN3, because CIN2, some guidelines say CIN2 can be followed up. So we have an important marker, that is P16. If your CIN2 histology is P16 positive, these are high grade lesion. So these patients can be followed as a high grade lesion with CIN3. So CIN2 with P16 positive and CIN3 lesion of histology, usually you should review your colposcopy reports. If your colposcopy is adequate, it's better to do either the leaf or ablative procedure. And after the procedure, you have to follow the patient with co-testing at 6 month interval, 1 year interval, and 2 year interval. If all the three reports are normal, then patient have to go for the routine screening at 5 year interval. If your colposcopy is inadequate, your ECC is positive, or patient having a recurrent CIN, history of recurrent CIN, then you should go for the conization and you have to see the margins. If margins are negative, then you have to follow the routine follow-up with a 6 month, 1 year, and 2 year. If margins are positive, we have to repeat co-testing or cytology at 6 month interval for 2 years, or you can repeat cone biopsy, repeat cone. If patient is not, if repeat cone is not feasible, then and patient has completed a family, it's better to go for the hysterectomy. CIN2 or 3 lesion in young patient who desires pregnancy, it's better to try as the CIN2 lesion with the P16 and Ki67. Ki67 is a marker of proliferation, usually seen in high grade lesion only. So positive P16 and Ki67 in CIN2 is usually treated as a high grade histology. So if CIN2 or 3 lesion is there, you have to do the excisional procedure. And if excisional procedure should be done. If your patient is can go to the follow-up, routine follow-up can be done in these patients. If patient is willing for routine follow-up, we have to follow the patient at 6 month interval with the cytology as well as with the colposcopy. If lesion persists at the 6 month, it's better to go for the excisional procedure. If your reports are normal, then you can do the repeat cytology at 1 year. 2 to 3 negative tests, we can repeat co-testing at 1 year, 2 year, and can refer the patient for the routine screening after the for the 5 years interval after the 3 negative tests. Any abnormal report in between, patient should be referred to the colposcopy. CIN in pregnancy, usually we should review the colposcopy reports for the adequacy, because in pregnancy usually lesions are seen as a higher grade lesion, but usually low grade lesion can be seen as a higher grade lesion. So a low grade lesion can be followed up after 6 weeks postpartum. High grade lesion on colposcopy should confirm with the biopsy. we should repeat the colposcopy in every trimester, but not less than 12 weeks. And we can review and treat the patient after 6 weeks postpartum. What the findings are there in colposcopy after 6 weeks postpartum. If any time invasive cancer is there, we can do the cone biopsy only if indicated, and we can, if margins are positive or frank invasive malignancy is there, we have to offer the treatment according to her period of gestation. If AIS on biopsy or ECC is there, we should go for the conization to rule out the invasive disease, because AIS has usually skip lesions. Only with the punch biopsy we cannot diagnose the AIS, we can miss these lesions. So conization is must, and we have to see the margins accordingly. If AIS is diagnosed, margins are negative, simple hysterectomy is sufficient. If your patient desires fertility, you have to see for the margins. If your margins are negative, your patient can be followed up 6 months, 12 months, then 1 year and 3 years. So all 4 tests negative, patient can be followed as a routine screening. But if your margins are positive or ECC is positive, either we recommend re-excision or we have to follow at 6 month interval with a cytology co-testing. So to summarize, HPV-based primary screening is highly recommended by the WHO and by the all international and national guidelines. Cytology is recommended if only authentic HPV-based screening is not available. These are according to guidelines, but we usually follow the resource-based setting. VIA is good screening tool for the low resource area. Excision-based treatment is preferred over the ablative treatment in high-grade lesions. Post-treatment follow-up needed for at least 20 to 25 years. To summarize the whole flow chart, if patient is HPV positive, you can triage the patient with a colposcopy via our cytology or with the help of genotyping. If ascus is there, go for the HPV testing. HPV positive, go for colposcopy. In low-grade lesion, high-grade lesion, ASCH, EGUS, everything we need colposcopy to differentiate the high-grade lesion and treat it according to our colposcopic finding. So thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Renuka, for explaining all the screening modalities in detail and what are the various flow charts and how to go about it. And here again, I will highlight once again that WHO has put strong recommendation for all the countries to move towards high performance test and role of triaging. And they are now highly recommending, seeing the economics and convenience, that HPV testing should become the main screening test. Although these guidelines will be more apt for high resource settings, but the recommendations by WHO are very strong, and they want that we should do HPV DNA testing, and then screen and treat approach should be followed. And if the patient is HIV positive, then we have to try them with other tests also after HPV DNA. But if she is not HIV positive, then you have to follow her without any triage. Further, you have to give her treatment with cryo or thermal ablation, or you have to refer accordingly. So we must understand the difference between see and treat approach and screen, see and treat approach. You have very well highlighted. So if there are any queries, we'll take up at the end of the session. So thank you once again for that great deliberation.
Yeah.
Dr. Leena.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Renuka. I think that was an excellent presentation, and you went through it in, I think, in a real record time to bring out the salient features.
Guidelines also, but because of short of time, I'm not going to detail of the
Yes. I think these guidelines, we should have it in our recorded there, and with all of us to guide us in our practice. And one point, what you suggested, which you have highlighted and which was very nicely put across, and I think we should all reiterate is depend on the kind of resource setting that you are sitting in. So if you are in a good resource setting like where I am, I would do the HPV testing, and that should be your primary screening, your baseline, wherein subsequent to its result you carry on what you're going to do next after getting your HPV testing done. And the other point that you mentioned is that screening starting in our country after 25 years. I think again that is very important. Another thing I would like to stress is don't go by patients' marital status and non-marital status, unmarried girls. Always bring them into your confidence, because it's very important that we pick up these diseases very, very early in their, the age of sexual activity. I think it's time. We are in the 21st century. We should take a good history, because I have picked up a girl as young as 26 years, who was like flitting from people to people with a vaginal discharge, which was being treated without anyone even doing a per speculum examination. So there were findings, and she was treated well in time. And that is because we took an appropriate sexual history. So we should do that and give them the appropriate treatment as and when required. The other thing is that even if we don't do an HPV testing, what you mentioned, even cytology, even today, it has a big role. So either way, what has to be stressed is that you do what you have. If you don't have HPV testing, you go in for a good cytology, do a proper smear, make sure you have a good representation of the endocervical canal. Because if you don't get cells from there, your pathologist is not able to comment. And so he gives you very complacent kind of a report, so you're not able to judge and you're not able to tell them. Seeing and treating, I think in today's time, is very important, because we lose a lot of patients to follow up. If you have seen, even in a private hospital where I'm sitting, patients are very like, oh, everything is fine, and they do not want to come back for their follow-up visit. So we really have to stress, and we have to try and do what you mentioned about the screen and treat and the see and treat. We should give them that option, and find out whether they will be able to come back or not, and accordingly do something for them on the primary setting. I think that will be something we'll be doing a lot of good for our patients, if we are able to treat them in the first sitting itself, right after your screening. I think these three things which mentioned, I thought they were very nice. And just a small word about, colposcopy, cytology testing in pregnancy. You mentioned that we must do a per speculum examination, preferably in the very first visit. Now, you would agree that a lot of women have these, erosions of pregnancy. So even at the time when we do a speculum examination, the cervix looks really inflamed and, abnormal. So just a word of caution, see the patient and do tell her that once she delivers and her 6 weeks postpartum period is over, to definitely get back and come in for a check. I mean, that is important to tell, because there have been cases of women, because the women are postponing their pregnancies and are having their first babies even at 35. So we do get to see patients who present with SIN 1, SIN 2, during their pregnancy. And so they have to be really followed up. So I think a per speculum examination during pregnancy has also got to be stressed. So thank you very much. You've given us a very nice presentation, and I really welcome if these guidelines are brought in, so that we can keep referring to them whenever we are practicing. Thank you so much.
Actually, colposcope has become like an extension of even OPD examination, because newer colposcopes are coming. They are lighter, smaller, portable, so things are getting easier that way. And another thing is, we must all be aware about recent developments. Like, there are so many studies going on regarding self-collection of pap smear and all that. So we must all be aware, and as and when available in India, we'll make use of them also.
And WHO reinforced the self-collection of HPV sampling now. So guidelines are coming self-collection.
What do you do? I just wanted to ask this learned panel, your patients don't turn up in time. Even the people who are educated and who are from very good strata, So it's a big, like abroad, they have this, basic health check and gynae check. There are people who are actually reminding them that, look, your smear is due or your HPV test is due. Go to your doctor. So they are reminded, but we don't have that kind of, thing even in the best of setups. So I think this is one gray zone, which I really wish we could attend to it, because this is such a easily treatable disease, so easily treatable.
Ma'am, social stigma is also there. Patients don't want to come us and don't want to be screen positive. They have a fear of getting positive tests. So that's also seen. I have seen various times.
Out of
Moreover,
mind, out of thinking, test mat karao.
हाँ,
I
टेस्ट ही
know
मत
that
करवाओ तो
बीती
कुछ नहीं
जाएगी.
होगा.
Correct.
Putting speculum is very important. We may talk about screening and all these things, but I have seen that even PS is not being done. So I request all my fellow gynae people to at least do speculum examination.
Dr. Anita,
Via is so easy. Via is so easy. I
Yes.
strongly recommend Via. Ma'am Sunita Malik is there. Dr. Joshi is there. I can see so many great people who are working in this field. So Dr. Sunita will like to make any comments, ma'am.
so I thought I'll make it at the end, a time factor we have to see. So I would rather call the next
Okay.
speaker. Yeah. So we'll do it at the end.
Over to organizers, please.
Thank you, Dr. Leena, and thank you, Dr. Anita, for nicely concluding the session. And now I would like to invite Dr. Ruby Sehra to invite our second speaker. Over to you, ma'am.
Has really given us a crisp dose of GIN and normal cytology. But since we somehow or the other, some or the other day, we land up in a conclusion that this is the finding what to do. Although Renuka has given us a very good guideline, but we would like to share some of the practical experiences shared by this Dr. Shruti, who is a senior gynae oncologist in Action Cancer Hospital, and he is experienced in gynae oncology for the past 15 years.
Ma'am, your voice is not audible.
This is showing that this is one.
You have muted yourself, Dr. Sarah. You have to unmute.
So I would like to invite Dr. Shruti Bhatia, who is a senior in Action Cancer Hospital, and she's practicing in oncology for past 15 years. And she's graduate from Maulana Azad College and postgraduate from Calcutta. And she's got her training from Tata Memorial and Japan. And she has received an excellence award also from ILA. And I would like her to just share her own experiences with various types of patients so that we can also get a practical solution to the various problems.
Sorry, ma'am.
Renuka, I'll start.
Sorry.
Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you to DGF Southwest and AOGD Oncology Subcommittee for being part of this webinar. As you all, many of you would have been part of IFCPC, which concluded last week. We all know our target 2030, we have to eradicate cervical cancer. I have been working in cervical cancer with Dr. Das for so many years. We had immense number of camps, immense number of colposcopy workshops with the sole aim of stopping cervical cancer at its root for cervical cancer screening and to stop it where it starts, that is CIN. Now you all would have heard about such a, Renuka has given you exhaustive flow charts, diagrams, and how do we manage these cervical cancers. I'm going to talk about something about actual practical clinical tips, what we do, how we do, and why we do it. Majority of us sitting here are private practitioners, few of are in government setups also, and we all have different resources. Some have, as Dr. Leena has just said, she is sitting in a very good resource setting with her and her patients are compliant. We are sitting in a private setup, still our certain of our patients are not compliant. They don't want to come for follow-up. So our treatment would, So treatment will depend upon various factors. First of all, what is the cytology report of the patient? What is her age? Depending upon her age, her desire of fertility, we will manage her accordingly and then we'll treat her accordingly. What is her compliance to follow? Is she willing to come again? Is she coming for regular checkup? Is she willing for it? As we all have discussed just now, so many patients are just not willing for follow-up. Even if we send them reminders, there is a stigma attached to it. They don't want to turn up for follow-up, or they don't have resources or a social backup for follow-up. A lot of our patients, there is have this stigma कि भैया मुझे कुछ नहीं हो सकता. Or being a lady of the house, they are so involved in their day-to-day activities that they forget कि उनको भी अपनी सेहत का ध्यान रखना है. Then there is a patient's desire. Some of them, they just want to take any risk कि भैया मुझे बीमारी हुई है, बच्चेदानी निकाल दो. So many of us would be facing this situation. A patient coming to us for the first time with vaginal discharge or a first episode of abnormal bleeding and she just wants hysterectomy. भैया बच्चेदानी निकाल दो डॉक्टर साहब, मुझे बच्चेदानी नहीं रखनी. I think that is not the day. This is not the day where hysterectomy is the first answer for everything. There are so many options with us where we can do treatment conservatively and then manage patients accordingly. Then facilities available. भैया हमारे पास क्या resources है? What are the resources we have? Some of us are fortunate enough to have all sort of resources with us. We have HPV testing, P16, Ki67, IHC testing. We have HPV genotyping, liquid-based cytology, TrueScreen, thermal ablation, cryo. There are tremendous amounts of supports available to us. But a lot of us are sitting at those places where the simple thing they can do is VIA and then treat patients accordingly. So we have to make the maximum use of whatever things we have and give the best results to the patient. So now I'm going to talk about few of the cases we have managed, just to give you an example of day-to-day clinical scenario, what we see daily and how we can manage these cases. Our first patient was a 37-year-old para 2 lady who had come to us with a history of excessive vaginal discharge, pain abdomen, and pruritus vulva. On examination, her cervix was reddened. We could see some discharge coming, and on PV examination, uterus was multiparasized with slight tenderness in fornices. Clinical diagnosis of cervicovaginitis was made. We gave her few antibiotics, local pessary, and advised sitz bath. After a few days, she was symptomatically better. Then we went ahead and did a pap smear. Pap smear came out to be inflammatory smear. Now with inflammatory smear, mind you, inflammatory smear is not a normal smear. So inflammatory smears need to be followed up. So in these cases, either we repeat cytology after 2 to 4 months, or if possible, if we have the resources, we do a HPV test. We did a HPV test in this case. It came out to be negative. And if the resources are available and if persistently cytology comes out to be inflammatory and the symptoms persist, then in those cases, these patients need to go for colposcopy. Or if HPV test comes out to be positive, then in these cases, we also need to do a colposcopy. In our patient, the symptoms persisted, although her HPV was negative and repeated pap smears were inflammatory. But because of persistence of symptoms and repeated inflammatory smears, we went ahead and did colposcopy. Now, as you can see on colposcopy, there was nothing significant. Transformation zone type 1, there was no abnormal vessels on green filter. With acetic acid also no significant acetobite area. And similarly with Lugol's iodine, there were no specific Lugol's negative area, just signs of chronic cervicitis. We reassured the patient, gave her a local treatment, and then kept her on follow-up. Once patient was also reassured, her symptoms were mitigated, and local treatment was given. She reverted back. Her next pap smear was normal, and the patient was sent on routine follow-up programs. This next patient is a 30-year-old para 1 lady who presented with a history of discharge and postcoital bleeding. On examination, cervix was normal. There was slightly discharge. We could see few condylomas on her left vulval, lateral vaginal wall, and on the left vulva just near the introitus. On upper vaginal examination, uterus was normal. When we did a pap smear for her, it was normal, but her HPV DNA was positive. So as you have seen in all these flow charts before, whenever there is a HPV DNA positive, we need to, and a normal cytology, we have various options available with us. Either we can send these patients for a repeat co-testing, especially in a 30-year-old lady, positive HPV with a low-grade cytology or a negative cytology can be referred for a repeat co-testing after 1 year, or we can send her for HPV genotyping. Now, in our patient, when we did a co-testing after 1 year, we found out the results were just the same, but on HPV genotyping, her genotype was 16. So in view of high-grade HPV infection, we planned her for, So in view of high-grade lesion on her HPV testing, we took her up for colposcopy. On colposcopy, we could see there is a type 1 transformation zone, and on application of acetic acid, a large aceto-white area was seen, which was involving almost 2 quadrants. We did a cervical biopsy. Cervical biopsy showed it to be CIN1. In all CIN1 cases, as we have seen in the previous flow charts, we can follow up these patients for at least 1 to 2 years. If the lesion persists for more than 2 years, then we go ahead and do treatment. We gave this patient some symptomatic treatment for her local itching. We asked her to apply imiquimod cream for her vulval warts and vaginal warts. Vaginal warts were actually very close to the introitus, so she could apply it on her own with some little help. And she applied that cream. She was well. But when we followed up this lady, her lesions persisted. And on repeat colposcopy, there was a similar lesion. So we went ahead and managed her CIN1 with the cryotherapy. As in this case, the lesion was involving almost just 2 quadrants of the cervix, and it could be easily ablated. So we went ahead and did a cryotherapy for her. Post cryotherapy, we had a very good result, and there was a nice ice ball crater, as you can see. And we followed up this lady. First visit was after approximately 3 to 6 weeks, and we looked for any abnormal symptoms like abnormal discharge or any local infection. Second subsequent visit was at 3 months to look for the healing. Subsequently, she was followed up by cytology and HPV testing, or if you have facilities available, plain HPV test can also do. By regular, we did a regular follow-up, and the subsequent test came out to be negative, and now she's on routine follow-up. Our third lady is a 38-year-old para 3 who had a history of postcoital bleeding. She had 2 episodes in last few weeks. On examination, we could see there was a small erosion on the cervical lip, and on per vaginal examination, uterus was multiparasized with the fornices were free. When we did a cytology for her in view of her postcoital bleeding, and pap smear came out to be HSIL. Now, as you have seen from the previous charts, any HSIL should have a colposcopy and a biopsy. So we did a colposcopy for her. On colposcopy, you could see a small erosion ectopy-like lesion here. Although there were no abnormal vessels on application of green filter, when we applied acetic acid, there was a large aceto-white area involving in all the quadrants and all surrounding the os. Similar results were seen on application of Lugol's iodine. Although there was no abnormal vessels, in view of the large aceto-white area and HSIL report, we went ahead and did a biopsy. Colposcopy directed biopsy plus ECC was done, which came out to be CIN2. Now, CIN2 needs to be managed and has to be treated. In this case, there was a large lesion involving all the 4 quadrants. So this patient was not amenable for ablative treatment. We went ahead and did a conization for her. We do a leaf conization. So with the leaf conization, we did remove the entire transformation zone, And as the cervix was enlarged, so it had the anterior and the posterior lips had to be removed separately. We normally do LEEP in our patients. We are more conversant with it. But if anybody is conversant or expert, can even do a cold knife conization. And when the pathology report of a loop came out to be CIN2 with all margins negative. As we have seen in the previous presentation, whenever we do a LEEP or a conization, margins are an important factor which we have to see. Any margins positive requires a further treatment or close follow-up. But when your margins are negative, you can leave these patients as a routine for a follow-up cases. So we followed up this patient with repeat HPV and cytology annually for 3 years. And if all were negative, as in our case, we leave these patients for routine screening, preferably up to 25 years. Sorry. Our next patient is a 52-year-old para-4 lady who was a postmenopausal, presented with a persistent vaginal discharge, and on examination, cervix looked healthy, although there was certain discharge, and on per vaginum, uterus was bulky, around 8-week size, and fornices were free. When her pap smear was done, it came out to be LSIL, and LSIL plus HPV DNA was done, which was positive. So as we have seen in the previous charts, all LSIL in women above age of 30 years, if possible, do HPV test and colposcopy biopsy in these cases. So we went ahead and did a colposcopy. I don't have the other images, but this one is the best image I could get for this patient. When applying gastric acid, we could see a large aceto-white area involving all the quadrants. We did a biopsy. Biopsy showed it to be CIN2. Now, in the 52-year-old lady with CIN2, we sat with her, we counseled her whatever treatment she wants. And a lot of our patients, as you would have seen, are impatient. They don't want delayed observation or something that would happen to them in future. If you tell them, look, CIN is a pre-cancer lesion. The moment cancer word comes in the terminology, they are very scared. So in view of her pre-cancer lesion, plus her ultrasound showing a 4-centimeter fibroid, so she was not willing for any conservative management, and she wanted a hysterectomy. We went ahead, did a hysterectomy for her, and the final histopathology came out to be CIN2 and a benign intramural fibroid. Now the patient is under follow-up and she is doing well. We call her for routine pap smears of the wall, because even those patients who have had a hysterectomy done, we have to follow up these patients with a wart smear. Moreover, whenever these patients are, because of HPV infection, HPV can involve wart, vagina, even the vulval side. So whenever you put a speculum, you have to examine the wart, vagina, and the vulval area, because lot of these patients come with vaginal or vulval lesion. We have had few patients who had hysterectomy for CIN 1 or 2, and it came out to be later vulval CIN. So these patients have to be closely followed up to 20 or 25 years as it is recommended now, or actually it is lifetime. If they are willing to come, then call them and examine them and do a wart smear or and plus vaginal and vulval examination. Our next patient is a 28-year-old para-1 lady who had come to us with a history of intermenstrual and postcoital bleeding. She was on OC, oral contraceptive pills, for past 4 years. On examination, the cervix was showed small erosion on both the lips. Her pap smear was showed inflammatory smear with atypical glandular cells, and HPV DNA was negative. So as you have seen in the previous presentation, atypical glandular cell need to be followed up closely. We have to do a colposcopy and cannot let them alone. We did a colposcopy for her. Luckily for her, on colposcopy, there were no significant lesion. We could see a transformation zone type 1. There was small, like a hyperplastic endocervical epithelium, no atypical vessels on green filter, and even with application of acetic acid, there was some areas of squamous metaplasia, no significant aceto-white area, and no atypical vessels were seen. The biopsy showed chronic cervicitis with no intraepithelial lesions or glandular atypia. We reassured the patient. She was put on close follow-up. A word of advice was given to stop oral contraceptive pills. It has been seen that oral contraceptive pills have been associated with atypical proliferation of endocervical epithelium. So we asked her to stop her oral contraceptive pills, instead shifted her to barrier contraceptive, and then followed her up. Her subsequent pap smear after 1 year came out to be normal, and then now she's on regular follow-up. Our next patient is para 2 lady, 29 years, para 2, who had no complaints. Her examination was done routinely as a part of opportunistic screening. Pap smear came out to be LSIL and HPV DNA was negative. Now, LSIL in a 29-year-old lady, you have the option of either you can repeat cytology annually for 2 years and then follow them, or if patient is non-compliant, or if you think she'll not come for follow-up, then you can go ahead and do a colposcopy. Now, our patient had come from a far-off area and she was not sure she'll be able to come again for follow-up. So we went ahead and did a colposcopy for her. On colposcopy, on green filter, there were no abnormal vessels. But with application of acetic acid, we could see a large area of acetovite area. Biopsy was done, which showed to be CIN1. We all know CIN1 can be followed up for at least 2 years, and if there is any problem, if the problem persists for 2 years, then any treatment is recommended. Follow-up can be done by co-test or cytology or via. However, in our case, as patient lived in a very far-off area in Uttaranchal and she was not very sure she'll be able to come for follow-up, she wanted an immediate treatment. In our patient, as you can see from the previous slide, there was the acetovite area involved almost more than 3 quadrants. So this patient was not amenable for ablative treatment. We went ahead and did a leaf excision for her. Leaf was showed CIN1 with focal areas of CIN2, but all margins were negative. So we could reassure the patient and ask the patient to stay under follow-up, although she hasn't turned back to us for follow-up, but I'm presuming she's doing okay because her margins were negative at that time and we haven't heard from her. So I'm just hoping for the best. Our next patient is a 53-year-old para 2 lady who came with a history of postmenopausal bleeding. On examination, there was uterus was 6 week size, cervix was slightly hypertrophied, pap smear was ascus, and as a reflex, we did a HPV DNA testing, which came out to be positive. And as she had presented with a postmenopausal bleeding, we went ahead and did a ultrasound for her. Ultrasound came out to be normal with the endometrial thickness of 4 millimeter and rest everything was okay. So with ASCUS, you can triage these patients by HPV testing or cytology, or if patient is not compliant, then do a colposcopy. Colposcopy in this case, you can see large Nabothian cysts on the posterior cervical lip. It was transformation zone type 1. Prominent vessels are seen on Nabothian cysts, but nothing significant. It's a abnormal vasculature. Acetovite area was seen on the anterior lip as well as on the posterior lip. You can see a large acetovite area both on the anterior and the posterior lip. We did a biopsy for her. Biopsy came out to be CIN1, and then we asked her to stay under follow-up. But when she stayed under follow-up because of CIN1 lesion, but she didn't. She persisted to have symptoms. Her spotting continued, her bleeding continued, and she was quite upset. So she was quite worried what's happening with her, and her reassurances were not fruitful. We did a repeat cytology. Again, it was same, and ultrasound was also not very informative. So we even did an endometrial biopsy, again, which came out to be negative. But in view of persistence of our symptoms, we went ahead and did a hysterectomy. And on hysterectomy, we could see a small polyp in the endometrium. And this is the cut section of the specimen which we had done intraoperatively. So it showed a small polyp inside. And on histopathology, it came out to be a benign endometrial polyp and CIN1 in the cervix. The point I want to make here is what we did for her, we did an endometrial aspiration in the OPD. We didn't do a hysteroscopy for her. On hysteroscopy, we could have diagnosed this polyp and we could have just done a polypectomy and hysterectomy could have been avoided. But we did, and we did do an endometrial aspiration and we missed it. So finally, she had a hysterectomy and this showed up benign polyp with a CIN1. Now she is under follow-up. Our next patient is 44-year-old para 3 lady with a history of occasionally blood-stained discharge. On examination, cervix was hypertrophied and appeared unhealthy. Per vaginum uterus was bulky and mobile. The pap smear came out to be HSIL. These are colposcopy images. We all know all HSIL should have a colposcopy and a biopsy. On application of acetic acid, you can see these abnormal areas, and same thing is appeared on Lugol's iodine. So you can see this abnormal vasculature with her. And if you can appreciate, the lesion is going almost up to the left vaginal fornix. There is almost up to the lateral vaginal wall. We did a biopsy for her and biopsy came out to be CIN3. Now in a CIN3 case, to rule out invasive carcinoma, loop conization is recommended. We went ahead and did a leap for her. Unluckily, it came out CIN3, but with positive margins. This could be most probably because of the lesion going up to the vaginal fornix. So in view of positive margins, we had option, either we could ask the patient to stay under follow-up or go for repeat excision or hysterectomy. But as the lesion in this case involved vaginal walls, it was not possible to do a repeat excision with negative margins. So we went ahead and did a hysterectomy for her with good vaginal cuff margins so that we can remove the abnormal area. And the final histopathology of hysterectomy specimen was CIN3 with negative vaginal margins. So now the patient is under follow-up and doing okay. Our next patient is a para 3 40-year-old lady who came with a history of vaginal discharge and premenstrual spotting. On examination, we could see a small polyp at the external os and the uterus was normal. Pap smear showed ASCH. Again, we all are familiar. ASCH requires a colposcopy. We did a colposcopy. You can see a small polyp here. On application of green filter, you can see there are certain abnormal mosaic pattern here and there are few abnormal vessels seen on the polyp. We applied acetic acid. The same area became asto-white and some abnormal vessels were seen here with coarse punctations and mosaic pattern. Biopsy was done. Biopsy showed CIN3. Now, as I said, all CIN3 should have a cone biopsy. In this case, we had CIN3 with invasive carcinoma in our cone biopsy specimen. So we went ahead and in view of invasive carcinoma, we worked her up. We did an MRI to look for any lymph nodes and other problems. And after complete workup, we did a radical hysterectomy for her. The final histopathology was T1B1N0 squamous cell carcinoma. And then she was, And we did a radical hysterectomy for her and no adjuvant treatment was required. Now patient is under follow-up. Last case for today, this is a para 4 postmenopausal lady who came with a history of vaginal discharge. And in view of her persistent discharge, we also did a pap smear. Pap smear showed atypical glandular cells with AGC with atypical endometrial cells. Ultrasound was done in this postmenopausal lady. We also found an endometrial thickness of 9 millimeter. Otherwise, rest of things were normal. So atypical glandular cells, on your cytology, we have to do a colposcopy plus endometrial biopsy. On colposcopy, nothing significant was seen on the cervix and there was no significant asto-white area or abnormal vessels. But when we did a biopsy for her, it came out to be atypical endometrial cells. Then we counseled the patient and we did all preoperative workup. On MRI also, there was endometrium was thickened, but there were no abnormal nodes or any other significant findings. In view of her atypical endometrial hyperplasia, we went and did a hysterectomy for her. We all know when a cytology shows atypical endometrial cell, around 15% cases may be associated with malignancy. So, but in our case, the final histopathology was atypical endometrial hyperplasia. The patient is doing okay, no adjuvant treatment is required. I would conclude my presentation and thank you for your patient hearing.
I would request Dr. Sunita to conclude the session.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a very nice presentation and all sorts of cases were present. I just want to make a few comments on these. First thing, we were talking about challenges. Yes, challenges are there. Even if we have available things, people are not coming. It's personal factors, it's a social factors and availability. Even if we have done the screening, what is the next? We are not able to follow. We don't have adequate centers to treat them. So screening follow-up. So that's there. Cost wise also, then the thing. So we need to have screen and treat and see and treat and so many things. That is there. The guidelines for Government of India is do VIA at least, and then do screen and treat if possible, and if not, then send them to the district hospital where the colposcopes will be provided, and the people are to be trained for that colposcopy, and then further management needs to be done, of course. That is there. FOXI, GCPR, WHO has been discussed very nicely. WHO has now, we all of us know, recently released guidelines shows that yes, HPV DNA should be the primary screening method. No co-testing also, that will be subsequently. So that till then we still have to follow up this whatever existing programs are there. So for us, it's still VIA and of course cytology if available. Then another thing is, yes, this could, how can it pick it up? So if we can have those self-sampling, urine sampling, now the gene expert and PCR testing are coming in our country also. So maybe we will have cheaper HPV testing, which is very sensitive. And then of course, just getting HPV testing is not sufficient. It could be non-high risk or high risk HPV DNA. So we have to try them further, either by doing genotyping or by doing VIA if she's a young patient, or cytology. So it depends whatever is available and the resources. That's there. Then we have those mobile ODT and smart scopes also, which are based on VIA, this thing in my magnification and intelligence AI, then so that we can compare those results. So that was about initial this thing, and then coming on to the these cases, Dr. Shruti has presenting them very nicely. So whatever, so these different types of cases were there. So I just have one or two this thing queries. We had this a case of postmenopausal bleeding, and then we did have those 4 millimeter endometrium, and it showed a polyp. We should have gone straight away along with cervical screening, I mean the colposcopy, and which you did and nicely presented. We should have gone for endometrial part also along with. Because it's a postmenopausal bleeding, we have to rule out endometrial factor. 4 millimeter with symptomatic patient, hysteroscopy or sampling is a must at the very onset. So do you want to say something?
We did do a endometrial aspirate, but in OPD, we didn't do a hysteroscopy. We did do a endometrial aspirate and we missed it on aspiration actually.
Yeah. So that is there. It's
Yeah.
written that with postmenopausal bleeding with even if 4 millimeter atrophic endometrium also we should do hysteroscopy.
Agreed.
That,
Agreed.
that
So
is
that's
one.
what this is what we have learned and now become
Yeah.
more
Of course.
smart. Yeah.
Yes, you have really nicely presented these things. Uh, then there's another case which you had is this pep. This was case number. Yeah, this. Yeah, this case number 8, which you had presented with pap smear of HSIL.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
did, yeah, the biopsy was CIN. So was vaginal biopsy also done along with?
No, ma'am.
Vaginal-
The lesion was just going up to the fornix. It was not
Okay.
involving. It was just reaching the fornix.
Okay.
We just did a sponge biopsy. We did only from cervix. And
Okay.
then we did a lead.
Yeah. So that was good. And of course, nicely managed these cases. Let's see the questions which are there in the audience also, which you all, yeah. So there's one.
Maybe Dr. Sujata has pointed out something.
Yeah. She has written this patient had HPV 16, so you have to treat her even when biopsy was CIN1. Message given should be very clear as HPV test is very sensitive. So you want to say something about it?
Ma'am, I think in a young patient, because this was a young patient and HPV 16 was positive, a lot of these patients will, the HPV will revert back to its normal. I mean, they'll clear off it HPV infection. As far as we know, persistent HPV infection is where malignancy happens. So we have to counsel them that you have to stay under strict follow-up. And yes, HPV 16 puts you under very high risk bracket, but most of them will clear off their own. But if she is, yes, if she's an immunocompromised or a HIV patient, I think then I'll go for immediate treatment. Otherwise, we can give them benefit of doubt and follow them up if they're willing for follow-up.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what it is. So I don't think there's any other question except for the compliments for both of you. That is there. So I'll just sum up with this recently released at WHO guidelines. That's what it is. So what they have said is HPV DNA should be the primary screening test, but till then existing program should continue. It should be done with or without triage. And for the triage, they have said best is to have genotyping. So first find out whether it's high risk, and then we can do either VIA or cytology. Cytology is now going to a back burner. You know, it's very difficult. So many, it's not cost effective. Also, yes, as and when we are getting HPV testing, and then many companies and maybe the competitive prices they come. So we may have this thing. And then of course other could be that we do high risk HPV DNA straight away and then colposcopy and accordingly treat, or the traditional way HPV DNA cytology triage and colposcopy and then biopsy and treat. So that was a highlight of WHO recommendation. There's some more. Yes, you presented out. Yes, please go ahead with this, Dr. Shruti.
Yeah, there's one question. If we vaccinate HPV positive females, yes, we need to vaccinate even if the patient is HPV positive, because when we are vaccinating, we are giving them prevention against rest of the HPV types. And that also, I think, helps in increasing herd immunity, ma'am. Your comment.
In fact, what we say is why should we, some people have also commented, why should we waste our resources on women who are already, even if they get HPV vaccine, they need to be screened. So if that, save that HPV vaccine for the younger girls. So and she has to be screened even if we give her a screen. So these these things are there. Yes, should we vaccinate or not? It depends on the resources and the cost availability and all those. Yes, we should vaccinate if she can afford, and then we have the things available so that it prevents further infection. If that was.
I think I would say that we have to become opportunistic. So for everything opportunistic, if the patient agrees, do it. She agrees for PAPS, do it. She agrees for HPV, do it. She agrees for vaccination, do it. Because I mean, even in our private sector, we get patients who are limited by resources, and post-COVID, there are resource limitation even in a middle or lower middle income group. So whatever we can do, I think we should do it.
That's right. That is there. So I think that's what we have. We have had such beautiful 2 presentations. So anybody else wants to make a comment here?
Dr. Anuradha has asked, if 2 ASCUS positive but HPV negative, how should we proceed? I think Dr. Zuchi has also answered something.
Yeah. So yes, if you want to answer this, 2 ASCUS positive HPV.
Can you hear me, Shruti?
Yes, ma'am. I was inviting you. आप ही को बुला रही हूँ,
Yeah.
We were waiting for you.
I know.
Madam,
I
how
have
can you
given
say
the
anything?
no. I have given the. Yeah, I thought I should not intervene because I was doing.
No,
I have answered to her what is the age of the patient. If
Yeah.
it is a menopausal patient, she should look at the epithelium, use estrogen, and then repeat, because they can keep coming ASCUS positive, and ASCUS positive can be followed and can be triaged with the HPV. That's all. You don't have to get scared of ASCUS cytology. I think, Shruti, you have already answered that in your case.
Yeah, ma'am, we did that. Yeah.
And
Thank you,
that
ma'am.
question to regard vaccination. So that HPV positive, there's a cross protection to the other strains. With vaccination, even if they are 16, 18 positive, they can have a cross protection for other phenotypically similar, like 33, 31. So there is always a little benefit that should be there. So if they are wanting to take it, go ahead and give it to them, because
That's
Fox
what
is
we were-
already telling you to give it up to age of 45.
Yeah.
So absolutely no issues in that.
So that's what it is. It will protect against further strains. That's if available and if she can afford it. But if you have to do what prioritize and then it's not freely available, then give it to younger girls. That's the message actually. Yes, of course.
जैसे कोविड ने सिखाया है ना कि वैक्सीनेशन भी कराइए, लेकिन वो SSS करना है फॉलो, ऐसे ही HPV है, आप वैक्सीनेशन लगवा लीजिए, तब भी स्क्रीनिंग कंटिन्यू करनी है. दैट इज द मैसेज आई वांट टू कन्वे टू ऑडियंस.
Ma'am, with COVID, I think adults have got ready to be vaccinated again. They thought कि उनके vaccinations, they are beyond the age of vaccination. So now I think they are more eager to accept this कि हमें और चीजों के लिए भी vaccination कराना पड़ेगा.
Yeah, change हो गई है mentality after COVID.
कोविड ने काफी कुछ सिखा दिया श्रुति, काफी कुछ सिखा दिया.
That's true, ma'am. That's true.
Yeah.
चलो.
I have to just make one comment. We recently had IFCPC conference. I don't know हमारे those are people who have attended here. I don't know how many of them could attend that meeting. It was an excellent meeting. And when we decided for this topic, I was discussing with Renuka यार कि people will not attend. We just had a grand gala. भी उसके बाद यहाँ पर attend करेगा. But then we gave it a second thought कि lot of people are actually not member of ISCCP.
Exactly, they would not have registered
They
for
would
it.
not have, yeah, they would not have attended. So we went.
Shruti,
हाँ जी
even
ma'am.
if you keep on doing it every month also,
Right, ma'am.
it is not more, because although it's a very small subject, but I think more and more and more you have to keep on re-emphasizing, then only we'll be able to eliminate it. So
That's
absolutely fine to do it regular interval.
That's true. Thank you, ma'am. And the most important is what Dr. Anita said, put a speculum. Like Dr. Das ki used to say one thing in every camp to all the doctors, कुछ नहीं करो, एक speculum डाल दो बस. कुछ नहीं करो, just put a speculum. And that was her motto in every colposcopy workshop, every camp she used to do, just put a speculum and do nothing, खुद ही कर लोगे उसके बाद.
And do downstaging.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
And the new recommendations which have been made by WHO, they are also very good, but they mainly rely on HPV screening as primary modality. I don't know how India will be able to manage that, but I think it's a very economical one, because they say that do HPV testing, forget for next 5-10 years if she is HPV negative.
One message should be very loud and clear. Whatever has to be done, screening karo.
Bilkul.
Yes.
Any modality.
Karo na, jo bhi method hai. The pap smear has proved in the developed world that it can bring down, so we cannot just discard that.
Yes,
so
yes.
whatever you have, you do it. उन लोगों ने तो कर दिया ना काम अपना, तब तो HPV नहीं था, तब तो PAP थी ना.
जी मैम, agreed. We have to stress upon that screening. You know, we have to give 90, 70, 90 policy is really valid for that. We have to screen at least 90%.
Thanks for mentioning.
And the obstetrician
Das,
plays important role, ma'am. Actually, in pregnancy, every patient at PS was done now, so it usually can screen the patient at least one in lifetime.
Yeah, that we, at least we can do VIA there, you know.
Exactly, ma'am. At least one or twice in a lifetime they can get screened. So,
नहीं आप LBC करो, LBC.
Exactly, ma'am. Our patient
We got a thesis done on LBC in pregnancy. 600 patient और कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती है. रेणुका उनको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती है. LBC ब्रश यूज करके उनकी पाप स्मेयर ले लो. So मतलब आप कोई भी किसी भी patient में I think except barring 1 or 2 patient, one of my postgraduate thesis, so her sample size was 600 women. So out of 600 I think 2 or 3 had slight spotting. वो थोड़ा सा brush की because and you know when you are using that LBC का brush, that's very soft bristles, so you can easily do it. That's the only one opportunity we get to screen them.
Exactly, ma'am.
My thesis topic was also on this same thing, on pregnant women detection of HPV. Because
HPV?
Professor Das was my guide too.
Dr. BC Das?
Professor SK Das.
SK Das, okay.
Yes, yes. Okay. So I remember my initial hesitation, how will I take a smear from a pregnant woman? But once we got going, we found that, hardly anyone had, and even that was, the spotting that we saw while putting, patient never had any problem. And we made it was what we all came to know, of course, later, that HPV, even mild HPV infections used to show up a lot on because of the pregnant status and the immunocompromised status during pregnancy, especially third time.
I'm talking about the pap smear. Like people have an apprehension, na pap smear se bleeding
pap smear in pregnancy.
So we did an LBC ka jo brush hota hai, that's a very soft bristles.
Yes.
So and they were all having no issue.
Even conventional pap we can do, only we should not use endo brush only, no? So
so we didn't have the endo brush at that time. So we just had the wire spatula. Yeah.
No, but this is going a little bit inside, but still it did not give any problem. So that's the message should be conveyed.
In any case, in pregnancy,
opportunity, do it.
Yeah. In any case, in pregnancy, the this endocervix is it's all ectocervix. So that is outside only. So it covers that part of.
Shruti, I have one comment to make on your presentation. Can I?
Yeah, ma'am, please.
तुमको तुम अपना बच्चा समझ ले तुम्हारे स्लाइड्स में हर जगह इरोजन लिखा हुआ है. So the erosion word should not be put on the cervix findings. It should have a cervix, it's an ectopy. So you correct that. Your guesses were excellent. I have already complimented you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
इसको ectopy कर दो.
ठीक है, ma'am. I'll do that. Ma'am, teacher वही है ना जो students को हर मौके पे correct करे. I'll always remain your student, ma'am.
No.
Ma'am was a teacher when I was doing my MBBS. So ma'am used to teach us. तब से madam से ही पढ़ रहे हैं.
नहीं अब तो तुम
इतनी
बड़ी हो गई हो.
Stalwart of colposcopy and cervical cancer, you know.
Vijay ma'am, what is the current status of handheld cervical scopes and all that? I will like you to comment on them also.
We don't have it, Anita. We have got 4 colposcopes in our department. We have binocular. We have got other ones also, but we don't have handheld. It's not very easy for.
Right.
No, we have
that. If you have a clinic, that is only research setting ना वो तो जो दिया है वो तो ODT वाला है उसके पास सर हमें उन्होंने they have done for a project के लिए दिया हुआ है. अनीता जो भी आपके पास है उसी से करो वो तो that's the convenience and mode of carrying. That's an ease for carrying for a screening a larger population, but when you are in instance or your own clinics you can have any conventional colposcope. Anita bhi hamare paas aayi thi.
I learned from Vijay. Yes, we are all her bachas.
Welcome to Maulana Azad when I was
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Chalo, okay. Bye, Sunita.
Bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
bye. Thank you,
ma'am.
Vijay.
Bye.
You could join.
Thank you.
I
Swati,
think we conclude the session here, and we hand over it to you organizers to say
Thank
the
you,
final.
Dr. Sunita, to conclude the session. That was a wonderful academic feast. It was such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all the dignitaries. I would like to express my gratitude to esteemed chairpersons to take out their time from the busy schedule to grace the event. Thank you to all the speakers for their excellent presentation and imparting us with your knowledge and wisdom. I would like to thank Delhi Gynae Forum Southwest and AOGD and Dr. Uday, President ICOG, Dr. Ashok, Secretary ICOG, to provide us a platform to conduct a webinar and their contribution to make this webinar a great success. And last but not the least, the marketing team of Action Cancer Hospital for the technical support. Thank you everyone for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Shruti,
much.
and Renuka, Swati, everybody
Thank you for
inviting me over.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Please join us for public forum also. We will be starting at 4 o'clock. It's about adolescent health, menstrual problems. Please do log in if you have time, please. Thank you so much. Thank you for making us a part.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you.